The whispering lighthouse, where the cliffs met the cold grey sea, there stood a lighthouse called Grey Rock. It had guided ships safely home for over 100 years, its light sweeping across the water every night without fail. The keeper of Grey Rock was a quiet man named Samuel Reed. He had taken the job 3 years earlier after his wife passed away, choosing the isolation of the lighthouse over the noise of the town. He liked the solitude. He liked the sound of the waves, and most nights that was all he heard. But one autumn evening, everything changed.
Samuel was climbing the spiral stairs to check the lamp when he heard it. A whisper, faint and dry, like wind moving through dead leaves. He stopped and listened. Nothing. Just the usual creak of old wood and the distant crash of waves below. He continued climbing, but a few steps later, the whisper came again. This time he understood words. Ship, rocks, danger. Samuel froze, his hand gripping the railing. "Who's there?" he called out. Silence answered him.
He told himself it was exhaustion. Keepers who lived alone for too long sometimes imagined things. He had heard stories about that. He finished his checks and went to bed, trying to forget the strange voice. 3 days later, in the middle of the night, a fishing boat called the Mary Ann struck the rocks near Grey Rock's shore. Luckily, the crew survived, pulled from the icy water by nearby fishermen. But the boat was destroyed, and the captain later admitted he had sailed too close to the rocks, misjudging the distance in the fog. Samuel stood on the cliffside the next morning, staring down at the wreckage, a cold feeling creeping into his chest. Ship, rocks, danger. The whisper had warned him.
3 days before it happened.
He told no one. Who would believe him? But a week later, the whisper returned, this time clearer than before. Ship, fire, tomorrow night. Samuel's heart raced. He didn't understand how or why, but he knew he couldn't ignore it again. The next evening, he stayed awake all night, watching the dark water from the lighthouse window, searching for any sign of a ship in trouble.
Just past midnight, he spotted it, a small light flickering strangely near the northern point, where the currents were dangerous and few ships ever sailed. Using the signal horn, Samuel sounded the alarm and rowed out himself, battling rough waves, until he found a small cargo ship with smoke pouring from its engine room. He helped the crew put out the fire before it could spread, saving both the ship and the 4 men aboard. When the captain thanked him, stunned that anyone had noticed them so far from shore, Samuel simply said, "Lucky timing," and said nothing more. But it wasn't luck, and deep down he knew it. The whispers continued for months. Sometimes they warned of storms, sometimes of broken ship parts, sometimes of drunken sailors steering too close to danger. Every warning came true, exactly as spoken, always a few days before the event. Samuel began keeping a journal, recording every whisper and every incident that followed. He started to notice something odd about the pattern. The whispers only ever occurred near a specific spot in the lighthouse.
An old sealed door at the base of the tower that had been locked for as long as anyone could remember. Even the previous keeper, an old man named Corwin, had once told Samuel, "Never open that door. Some things are better left as they are." Samuel had never questioned it before, but now curiosity gnawed at him. One stormy night, after hearing a whisper more urgent than any before, "Danger! Tonight! Many lives!" Samuel made a decision. He grabbed an old iron key hanging in the storage room, one he had never used, and walked down to the sealed door. The key fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for him all along. Inside, he found a small, dusty room, untouched for decades. In the centre stood an old ship's bell, cracked and rusted, resting on a stone pedestal. Beside it lay a faded logbook.
Samuel opened the logbook with trembling hands. The entries were over 100 years old, written by the very first keeper of Grey Rock Lighthouse, a man named Elijah Greyrock himself. The final entry read, "The bell was recovered from the wreck of the Whisperer, a ship that sank here in 1789, taking 40 souls with it. I placed it here as a memorial, but I soon discovered its strange power. The bell hears danger before it comes, and speaks through whispers to whoever tends this light. I believe the souls lost that night wished to prevent others from suffering their fate. I have decided to seal this room, fearing the responsibility might be too heavy for future keepers to bear. But if you are reading this, the bell has chosen to speak to you again. Do not fear it. Listen carefully and act quickly." Samuel stared at the cracked bell, understanding washing over him. It wasn't haunted, not exactly. It was a warning system, powered by tragedy, passed down silently through generations of keepers who never fully understood its gift or its cost. That night, the whisper grew louder than ever. Danger. Tonight. Many lives. Samuel rushed to the tower, lit every signal he had, and rowed far out into the raging storm, despite every instinct telling him to stay safe inside. Just beyond the northern point, he found a large passenger ferry drifting helplessly. Its engine failed, dangerously close to the rocks in the middle of the storm. Working with the ferry's crew through the night, Samuel helped guide the vessel safely around the rocks using signal lights and careful direction, preventing what could have been the worst disaster Grey Rock had ever witnessed. Over 60 passengers arrived safely to shore the next morning, unaware of just how close they had come to disaster, or who had truly saved them. From that night on, Samuel never sealed the bell's room again. He visited it often, listening carefully whenever the whispers came, treating each warning with the seriousness it deserved. He never fully understood why the bell had chosen him, or why it had waited so long, silent, before speaking for the first time. But he stopped questioning it. Some mysteries, he realized, weren't meant to be solved, only respected.
And so Grey Rock Lighthouse continued to stand on its rocky cliff, its light sweeping across the dark water every night, guiding ships safely home, not just with light, but with a whisper only the keeper could hear.